Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. Tata Group-owned Air India has signed multi-billion-dollar deals with France's Airbus and American plane maker Boeing to buy 470 passenger aircraft in what is being termed as the largest purchase in commercial aviation history. The combined value of the aircraft deal is estimated at about $70 billion US. The deals include 220 planes from Boeing and 250 aircraft from Airbus. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden spoke over the agreement between Air India and Boeing. Both welcomed the deal as a shining example of mutually beneficial cooperation. Also, French President Emmanuel Macron, who joined the video conference with Prime Minister Modi, described the contract as a milestone in the friendly relations between India and France. So the details of the mega deal and how it bolsters India's position as an emerging leader in the commercial aviation sector is what we will discuss over the course of the next 30 minutes with three distinguished panelists joining us on the program. Let me begin by introducing them to you. Delighted to have with me in the studio Mr. Ganpati Subramaniam. He's a senior journalist. And joining us virtually are Mr. Jitendra Bhargav, former Executive Director, Air India, Dr. Sansad, Chairman, International Foundation for Aviation and Drones. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the program today. Mr. Bhargav, to you first. How significant is this deal towards fulfilling Air India's dream of dominating, once again, the global skies?
You know, I wouldn't say that we are fulfilling the Air India's dream. It's basically India's dream.
Yes.
We had all recognized for quite some time now that India is a fast-growing market. But the irony was that the growth that we were witnessing was being harnessed by the Gulf carriers and the Southeast Asian airlines, because Air India, being government-owned, did not have requisite funds to expand the fleet for expansion of network and adding more capacity. With the disinvestment having taken place, Tata's took control of the airline, and they made one significant statement on that day, that we live JRD Tata's dream and give world a first-class airline. And I think this mega order that Tata's placed yesterday on Airbus and Boeing is part of the same program or the plan that they have in mind. Now, what does it help kind of a thing? You see the significance, number one, no airline has placed an order of this magnitude. So it's a clear message to the world. Indian aviation has arrived on the global platform with a big mega order. The presence of Joe Biden, statement from him, President Macron, Prime Minister Modi, all lead in one direction. That in a world which is fearing economic recession, a mega order being placed underscores 2 points. Number one, that India has been a bright spot. People have been acknowledging it. Europe and United States are fearing recession. And both these President Biden more so and President Macron made it particular mention that this order will generate huge employment in their countries. So it is not just Air India, Indian aviation, but globally this mega order is going to send a very strong message and will help Air India, of course, realize the dream. As we've all said, that people have nostalgic memories of Air India. People want to fly Air India, but we could not live up to the expectation, both qualitatively and quantitatively. But now with Tata's at the helm, Tata's owning it, fund not being a constraint, they will not only expand the network aggressively, but give world a first-class airline of something that we used to earlier remember during JRD Tata's time.
Dr. Kaul, do you agree the fact that, this is being described as the largest commercial purchase in modern aviation history, it places India on the global aviation map, and as Mr. Bhargav said, it signals to the world that the Indian aviation sector has arrived on the global map?
So the issues like this, I fully agree with Mr. Jitendra Bhargav on whatever he has said. And I would go further and say that now this mega order, we have two major opportunities which we should actually studiously fulfill. One is manufacturing of aircraft in India. It's going on in a little bit up and down. Tata's, in any case, have about 9 or 10 companies, big companies, like they already have a collaboration with Boeing, but with Tata Advanced System, they have in the defense. It is time that they should ensure that with this big order, both the companies, the Airbus and Boeing, start making Tata a manufacturing base, Tata companies and India a manufacturing base, and that should be insisted upon. And I think, like China did it, we should also do it. We should go for a much bigger role in manufacturing of aircrafts, big passenger aircrafts, defense aircraft we're already doing in a much bigger way, so that our dream of becoming a manufacturing hub for aircraft is also fulfilled.
Right.
I would like to state here just now that the Indian space program, ISRO, is doing very well. We manufacture and launch our own satellites. We have, we have made several landmark achievements. Also, in car manufacturing, we have done very well. We are now one of the biggest car manufacturers. We are exporting cars. The aviation sector is lagging behind, and it is high time that we should look into this. The second thing which I want to mention is that this is now the opportunity with such a large order to make India, and in that context, Delhi and maybe Mumbai. Mumbai has some problem, Mumbai airport, into an international aviation hub. And this can be done if government cooperates and provides sufficient bilateral air services agreements, connects to countries which otherwise commercially they are not viable. Maybe CIS countries, maybe part of the ASEAN group. Out of 10 ASEAN countries, we are actually supplying the connectivity only to 3 major countries like Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia. The others are erratic. Where Vietnam has started a connectivity now with India direct, and we should connect not only Delhi or Bombay, but more cities. India is a very big country. There's a massive outbound passenger traffic from India. Indians are traveling abroad. Therefore, I think we should connect India and make India into a regional aviation power. And this can only be done by creating an international hub. An international hub would mean that maybe 50% of the passengers who come to these 1 or 2 airports of India, which will be the hub, will be transit passengers. They may stay in India for a few days, but they will also transit from here. That requires that we must have much greater connectivity to the region around India, in ASEAN countries, in CIS countries, where we also have a foreign policy interest.
Right.
We have a lot of foreign policy interest. Even if, like Udan, a subsidy program is started within a couple of years, I'm sure there will be no need for a subsidy. But subsidy, if required, I'm making a blank statement that if subsidy required, it should be given to encourage Indian airlines to go abroad to areas which may not be profitable. For example, say take Indonesia. Where is the flight to Indonesia? Take Philippines. Where is the flight? Sometimes they come, sometimes they cancel. Even Vietnam was started by jets long time back. They ran it for about 2 years with a stop in Bangkok, then they stopped it. Now Vietjet is coming. So we have so many. Laos, Cambodia are not connected.
Clearly, so, two significant points that you've made, Dr. Kaul. One, of course, is the thrust on Make in India. We've done well in the aerospace sector. We are doing well in the area of defense space aircraft as well. But now to ensure that commercial passenger aircraft is also made in India, how do we ensure that these big plane makers like Boeing and Airbus that we have, engaged with now, the Tata Group. So how do we ensure that they make in India, something that I'll come back to and get response from Mr. Bhargav. But let me also bring in Mr. Subramaniam into the discussion and understand his point of view. There's no doubt, Mr. Subramaniam, that this is a historic deal. It means a lot for for Indian aviation sector as far as global market is concerned. Also in the sense that it's a big opportunity for Tatas to sort of transform the airline into becoming one of the world-class airlines. But the question here is also about, and what's been spoken about a lot since the deal was announced, is Joe Biden hailing this as a historic agreement. He's saying this is going to create about 1 million jobs in America. When was the last time that you heard a country like the United States hailing a developing country like India for creating jobs in its backyard? What does it say about Indian economy, about India's position, given the geopolitical scenario, the current geopolitical scenario?
I would say it's a masterstroke by our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, to put many things together and make it as a package here. On the one hand, it is billions of dollars of business for European countries as well as America. On the other hand, it's technology transfer for India. And Remember, all this is happening even though Air India is not a government company now. It's a Tata airline.
Yes.
It could be a simple Tata deal with Boeing, Tata deal with Airbus. But instead, they have put it together as a package. And if you may recall, Prime Minister went to the Air India show in Bangalore, Yalanka inaugurated it and made a strong push for Make in India. This is an area where in high technology, we can bring in a lot of technology from the US as well as Europe and also build not only planes but also drones and many other areas which are associated with it could benefit in a big way. Indian economy now already having moved to the 5th place is very soon expected to move to the 3rd place.
Right.
If we have to achieve that, then we have to work on things like this. Take every opportunity and put it as a push for the Indian economy. And we have also managed the dynamics very well. After the Ukraine war, you know how threat of sanctions, don't buy Russian oil, all kinds of things were there. India has managed to balance everything. And this is even finer balancing. 50% of the business has gone to Boeing, 50% of business has gone to Airbus. So both Europe and America are happy with this. So therefore, there will be a lot of flow of technology, lot of benefits India can derive from this deal as a counter trade. So therefore, it's going to be a lot of help, not only to Indian aviation, but to Indian economy and the high-tech technology sector as a whole.
In fact, that's an interesting point that you made about a balanced deal. And let me go across to Mr. Bhargav on that. Mr. Bhargav, how did Air India manage to, have a balanced deal both with Airbus and with Boeing? And of course, you would be knowing about how much time it took. When did Air India start with negotiating and come up with such a win-win situation for everyone put together?
If we go back into history, Air India, the erstwhile Air India I'm talking about, had always been a Boeing company. Indian Airlines always had Airbus. So there was an unwritten agreement for balancing between Europe and United States. Our politicians have this habit of criticizing government or when government leads business houses, etc. There's nothing wrong with it. And what has Joe Biden and Macron showed with this deal? That look, we are all there to promote business of their companies. So whether with Tata's Boeing negotiation, Tata's Airbus negotiations, they may have done the negotiation, but the hidden hand of the government is also visible. I'm sure the government would have exercised the control with the government and extracted what was best needed, because Prime Minister has a vision that we must try and manufacture as many items as in India. And we've already heard from Airbus that many of the components of these aircraft will be produced in India, and Tatas have the requisite experience. So it's not a question of just balancing it. You're playing your cards very well because India is an emerging power, G20 leadership with us. People are looking at India as the bright spot in economy. So when you assume leadership, and like many of the people have been talking about, Prime Minister's own standing worldwide. So his being there yesterday couldn't have been only with Mr. Macron. And that is why a statement came out from the White House that even Boeing is getting the order. And later in the night, it got announced because of the time difference. So India, I think Indian aviation, Prime Minister's role in it, world looking at it as a major market, emerging market, and one has what we are going to be correcting, which has been a long time. It has taken us a long time is that why should we allow Europe, the Gulf carriers and the Southeast Asian carriers to benefit from India's growing market?
Right.
Let jobs get created in India. Let the flourishing, the aviation sectors. Now, for example, Tata's have got 400 of the narrow-bodied aircraft. Now, we will have allowed the Gulf carriers flying multiple frequencies to different cities in India. And Air India and the other Indian carriers flying largely from Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, etc. So once the reach expands, it will basically mean that Indian carriers are meeting the requirement of Indian passengers, not only India originating Indians, but Indians residing abroad coming to India also. All said and done, it underscores the point that disinvestment of Air India was a fabulous decision, something that we have been advocating for a long time. but Mr. Modi saw it through. Tatas have living up to the promises that they've made, and that is why there was not much of political murmur when Tatas got the disinvestment bid and acquired Air India. Had there been any other business house, probably the reception wouldn't have been the same worldwide. And Tatas, the way they are performing at the moment, I think give them a couple of years, we will be legitimately proud of Air India once again.
Mr. Subramanian, what about the other carriers? This is about Air India and how it's going to, help the aviation sector grow in the country. But as the Prime Minister put the number, we would be needing about 2,000 aircraft in the next 15 years. So, of course, our needs are growing. And aviation is an important pillar of our growth. So we are growing rapidly. There's no doubt about it. We need to take care of the needs as well. What about the other carriers? How do we ensure that they're also growing and contributing to the overall growth of the sector?
In 2019, if I remember, before the COVID pandemic, Indigo ordered 300 aircraft. So at that time, it was hailed as a very huge, largest aircraft deal, big order from an Indian company. Then later on, there were other big deals, especially one from American Airlines, which was far bigger. And now Air India has done even bigger than that, 470. American Airlines was only 460. So in a way, Indian airlines are all growing now. It is not that only Air India is growing because Tatas have taken over. No, others are also growing. Others were growing faster earlier. Now Air India is also catching up. And Air India also has a family because of the Tatas. Because Vistara on one side, Air Asia, then they also have a tie-up with Singapore Airlines. So the roots are deep now. So therefore, the growth will be much bigger at this point in time. And I think this is what our government has made full use of, saying that let's put the pieces together. See, Air India, last time when it ordered aircraft was in 2006. That was 111 aircraft, not a small order. It was also a big order at that time. But there was a lot of acrimony. There were complaints from one side against the other, blah, 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 etc., etc. Now, there is no murmur, nothing. And there is no burden on the government. It is the Tatas who are expanding their business, and the government is trying to utilize it fully, diplomatically, as well as for India's investments, growth as a catalyst. So therefore, it's for the Tatas also it is good, and for the government also it is much better. And does not mean in any way that other airlines are going to suffer or whatever. They will also grow. When these companies grow, then there are a lot of other associated ancillary businesses that grow. Then rival airlines will also go. There will be competition. Because of more capacity coming in, fares will go down and everybody will benefit.
Right. Dr. Kaul, a lot is being spoken about, of course, our growing needs. At the same time, the thrust on Atmanirbharta, which has been the clarion call of the current government. The question is, how do we strike the fine balance?
Well, I think what everybody has said, what the other two speakers have said, I fully agree. Now, one of the things which you're talking about, one is Atmanirbharta, the second is employment. Now, both these things, as I have mentioned about manufacturing earlier, I think manufacturing is very, very important, and this needs to be studied properly and incentivized and attract more of these two companies, especially, to come and manufacture more, or through Tata. So Tatas have 8 or 10 companies. Tata Advanced Systems is doing such great job. And there are other companies which are involved with aviation. They are software. Tata Consultancy Services do deal with aviation software. So there is a lot of scope. The second thing is, President Joe Biden mentioned about 1 million jobs being created in US. Well, what about India? India needs more jobs, and India must create jobs. And therefore, this deal is going to help. We need to create more. In addition to this, we need to have more engineering works here to maintain for maintenance and repair of the MROs, which are known as MROs, maintenance and repair organization. For some reason or the other, most of our aircraft are going abroad for major service, which has to be stopped, and somehow they must start repairing here. So the effect of this purchase is going to be tremendous on employment also, and that needs to be emphasized, and that needs to be fine-tuned and worked. And I think it's going to help the economy in a very big way. So that's what I'm saying. And the second thing I mentioned was open up regional connectivity internationally, not just through domestic connectivity. And if a subsidy scheme is required, so be it. Start now and cover the entire place. Make Indian airports like Delhi and Bangalore. I hope Mumbai will come up into international hubs where people will come and travel to major destinations like we do for the Gulf areas and for the Southeast Asia, where maybe Dubai and Singapore have come up largely on account of Indian traffic. Indian outbound is also doing very well. Indian passengers, the Indians are going abroad in a very big way. The growth of Indian outbound is the highest. They should be channelized. They will go to new places. They get direct flight because when they go on holiday, the holiday period is small and people don't want to keep changing planes at various different airports, go to different hubs. So direct flights are required now. So I'm talking about what we can do further with this fantastic order and the politically correct order where we have balanced it so well as described by Mr. Bhargav. I'm fully with it, or the other speakers. So I'm fully with it that it was a very balanced order. It's been a great thing which has happened after a long time in our country, and we need to fully take advantage of this. Thank you.
Clearly, a remarkable step, Mr. Bhargav, as far as creating jobs is concerned, as far as taking care of the increasing needs is concerned, and of course, as far as establishing Air India once again among the world-class global airlines is concerned. The question here is, as Dr. Kaul suggested, now the thrust should be on making India an international hub. So what's the way ahead?
This has been spoken about for quite some time, vision of hub. You have one airline, Air India, which started out of Mumbai. 15 years ago, it was moved to Delhi as the headquarters. So bulk of Air India's operations started emanating from Delhi airport. Now, unless you have multiple airlines, we can say, all right, we have the traffic, but largely speaking, frankly speaking, the countries that have a hub are primarily where there are 3-4 dominant airlines. Indigo, which dominates the domestic scene with 50% plus market share, hasn't ventured out with long-haul aircraft. They're not flying to Europe, they're not flying to United States, they're not flying to Australia, Japan, etc. So unless we really have at least two dominant kind of players, said, all right, Delhi would be where India will operate, Mumbai is from where another airline would operate. But all we need is efficiency at the airport. Should a passenger travel from point A to India and then from India on to the Southeast Asia or vice versa, it should be seamless transfer. Let's get the stage one. India has many miles to go, as they say, because when we announced yesterday, the deal was announced, what did the Airbus people say? That we'll be sending the pilots to Singapore for simulator training. Now, the question is, this is where the deal would come in, and they said, okay, henceforth simulator will precede the induction of Airbus 350 aircraft, so that the training, whether it's the spare parts, whether it's the MRO requirement, as Mr. Sansad very rightly said, all must get established.
Absolutely.
To me, this is the beginning of many more things to come in the Indian aviation. The route has been worked out. The destination is very clear where we need to go. It's only a question of will, determination, and with Tata as a dominant house. You see, Ganpati Subramaniam made a very valid point that why are the other airlines not combining, say, Indigo with kind of a thing? China gained hugely when all the airlines combined, bargained with the aircraft manufacturers and got the best deal for the country. Indigo has been concentrating on domestic operations, but not on these large long-haul destinations, with Air India, of course, monopolizing on that sector. So the competition on the international sector, Gulf carriers will better watch out, the Southeast Asian carriers will better watch out, and let's hope the aircraft induction is smooth, pilots are trained, and as Mr. Sankol hinted, the employment generation, every aircraft generates requirement of at least 10 pilots, about 40, 50 cabin crew that you require.
Right.
Then there are ground handling staff that is required for it at the airport terminal. Then there are engineering services. So what we hope is that for the government is that the Air India Engineering Service Limited, which also on the government's radar for disinvestment, is done so fast so that if Tata's gain that thing, then everything can be in-house as it was during
So
V.R.D.
clearly,
Tata's days.
as all three of you have underscored the fact that this deal signifies a remarkable step, a milestone journey in expanding India's aviation sector. This is just the beginning, and we are hopeful that there will be many milestones that we will achieve in the near future. So that having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you once again to all my guests for joining us on this edition of Perspective, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And thank you very much, viewers, to you as well for your time. I'll see you same time tomorrow now. Take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sansad TV.